Hello and welcome to the Driving Maul show. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening. Don't worry, it's not going to be a solo show. Mr. Harris, it will be joining me, but he is running a little bit late today. Well, I say running a bit late, but here he is stepping right in, right on time. What a superstar he is, as always. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Hopefully I'm not muted and you can hear me nice and clearly. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, great to have you on. Look, it's an interesting weekend of games, even though there were only 4 of them. So we will be getting through obviously the Super Rugby action this tonight. But before we get there are a couple of other little sort of news items that we should have a little chat about. Look, I know we don't cover off on the women's game because we just don't follow it closely enough. But I wanted to give people the heads up that we have got the Pac 4 is on at the moment. So we've already had a few games with the USA losing to Canada 14-26, and last weekend Australia being beaten by New Zealand 12-38. Australia did have a warm-up game where they beat Fiji 7-43 as well. So action happening in the women's side of the game upcoming this weekend. Japan are playing Kazakhstan, as well as New Zealand hosting Canada, and Australia hosting the USA. So in the 4-pack series, or Pac 4 series, sorry. So that is well underway right now. That's going to be a double header between Kazakhstan and Hong Kong. They're playing each other again next Tuesday, so a week tomorrow, as well on that one. On the I did notice something on the BBC site, which was questioning about, is it time for a change in the Women's Six Nations? So the Women's Six Nations are made up of the same teams as the Men's Six Nations, so England, France, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and Italy. And they pulled a table together of the of basically the results from 2022 to 2025. So over 4 years there. Over that time, over the 4 years, England have won 20 games and lost 0. France have won 16 and lost 4. And then the other 4 teams, so Wales, Scotland, and Italy, they've all each won 6, drawn 0, and lost 14 on that one. So, clearly there is a big gap between the top 2 and the rest in that competition. And look, whilst the women's game is definitely heading in the right direction, or has definitely progressed. Whether it's the right direction or not, I guess that's maybe I'm not the right one to say that, but it definitely has progressed over recent years with that introduction of the Pac 4, with the X15, the cross tournament every winter between the Northern Hemisphere and the European sides and the Southern Hemisphere sides into 3 different levels. So things are definitely heading up with that one, there. As Simon points out, Spain were originally a member of the Six Nations, but were replaced by Italy. Yes, that was when they wanted to align it with the men's one, which seemed always a bit strange. But there you go. So, but that's with that one. But as Simon says, the World of Rugby needs to keep its investment up. Look, I think you're finding that a lot of teams, and I think we talked about this a week or so ago, about the fact that New Zealand Rugby made a loss in their latest annual for the 3rd year on the bounce. Look, a lot of countries have about, so I guess, pre-COVID were like, yeah, let's get into women's rugby, let's start investing there, and then since pre-COVID. None of the countries, well, except probably France, maybe Japan, have got their finances in order, when you're losing money, it's very difficult to be investing in things, especially in new areas that you know are going to grow, but the problem is you've got to invest in them at some point on that one. I sort of covered off on a whole bunch of stuff there, Stephen. Any of that you've kind of been keeping an eye on or want to talk about?
Listen, I think if we saw the result the weekend with the Black Ferns, they were pushed pretty hard by Australia, and listen, I think that was great to see. 38-12, the final scoreline, but and that was after what was it at half time? It was
So
19-0 at half-time, final score 38-12. But Australia could have scored a couple of other tries, so it could have been a lot closer than the final score. But we just slowly start to see a bit of improvement.
So yeah, so it's good to see that that one, and of course when we are talking about the Ruby Tui and Portia Woodman kind of post era as well. Portia is in the squad, but she wasn't in the match day 23 at the weekend. So yeah, so it's a bit of a transition or evolution, maybe rather than transition period for the Black Ferns at the moment. So, but yeah, good for them heading in the right direction, because yeah, Rugby World Cup later this year as well on the women's side of things. Nocturnal Rice is asking what's up with the title. Yes, so the title of the show was have the Chiefs lost their mojo, and that was kind of what I was thinking as we came into last weekend's game. So that's why I kind of put that question up there, because hey, I think we got an answer at the weekend, and we'll get onto that when we talk about the games. The Hurricanes, look, they had a bye at the weekend, and apparently it came at the right time because COVID-19 apparently ripped through the side, and several players and coaches were all out of action at the beginning of last week. Apparently, luckily, people are all sort of on the comeback, and so it shouldn't impact them too much. But yeah, for anyone who thinks that that COVID-19 has kind of disappeared or didn't exist, no, it still exists, just like flu exists as well. And flu goes through teams as well at times, as to other things. But yes, sounds like the Hurricanes dodged a bullet there, Stephen.
Yeah, very much so. Talk about the good timing, if you know what I mean. If ever you were going to pick for the majority of the team to be ill, definitely going to be on a bye week, but important that they get back on the horse this weekend.
Absolutely. Now, there are a number of injuries at the weekend. I guess will be part of the news, but I think we'll cover off on those, each of those, as we sort of talk about the games. Any other kind of bits of news that you saw that before we dive into the games?
Yeah, I just want to quickly touch on the Under-20 Rugby Championship. New Zealand going back to back after a 48-45 win against South Africa this morning. Just you got to say, probably almost this was played at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. You got to say maybe defence was a bit of an option. The South Africans got out to a big lead by 19 points to nil. New Zealand team actually worked their way back into the lead. Once they got in front, they didn't relinquish that lead, but they had to play the last 10 minutes with one of their players being sent off for a red card. The open side flanker Woodley was sent off, and then they lost another player, Baker, right at the end. So they had to hang on by the skin of their teeth against South Africa, but it was enough to see them through and to win the title. Australia were the leading team going into that last game on the back of a 40-36 win over Argentina, and once again another close game. So New Zealand finishing on top of the table with 3 games, 2 wins, and the 1 draw against Australia in round 1. Australia in second place in 10 points. South Africa in third place on 6 points. They're a tad disappointed with their performance given they're the hosts, and Argentina failing to register a win in this game. Although competitive against both South Africa and Australia, they were heavily beaten in the second round by New Zealand. But congratulations to New Zealand. I quite, whilst they conceded a lot of points, I did like the shape and the way that they actually played the game. But I think at that level, exuberance, trying to play your own rugby inside your own 22 after you've scored points, I think a lot of these youngsters will learn once you go to another level. From the kickoff, you get out of the red zone and you defend.
Is this a new tournament?
No, this is the second year. The under 20.
Okay, all right. So that's yes. Okay, it is a new tournament. It's only 2 years old. Sorry, I mean, I was going to say I didn't think this was. If I remember,
it's pretty much taken over from. There used to be a a quadrangular tournament played on the Gold Coast, and that was just basically a warm up for the World Cup, and usually it was by invitation only. There was sort of New Zealand. It was only actually New Zealand, Australia, and back in the day I think it was Fiji. So it's good.
Generally a couple of Pacific nations, but so this is actually a new, basically copying the senior side structure of the tournament. We've had under 20s, 6 nations for a long time now, for many years. So so this sounds like catching up, putting that kind of structure in place. But it is a shame that your Fiji, Samoas, and Tongas do miss out on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think it's going to be very difficult for them to improve it unless there's some sort of promotion relegation or you bring more sides into it. I don't really know, but I'm not too sure of the actual under 20 rankings, whether any of those. I would imagine Fiji have probably qualified for the World Cup, but in recent times I don't know if we've either seen Samoa or Tonga at the under 20s World Cup, and I've actually not entirely up to play where that's actually been played this year as well.
So yes, this year, and it's going to be, I found where it is, but
Argentina.
There we go. But this year, the teams in there: England, Australia, South Africa, Scotland in Pool A, Pool B, France, Argentina, Wales, Spain. Pool C, New Zealand, Ireland, Georgia, and Italy. So no Pacific teams at all are in that one at the moment.
That pretty much tells you where the Pacific Island rugby at the under 20 level is at the moment. So just crazy. Is it actually Argentina or Italy that it's being played? I think it might be Italy. Verona, I'm pretty sure is in Italy, not Argentina.
Italy, yes. Yep. So that's the one. In 2026 is going to be in Chile, which will be a good way to expand the game down there in South America. We actually, one thing I forgot to mention is actually the British and Irish Lions squad was announced last week as well, with a record low number of players being picked from Wales, just 2. That caused a bit of angst. But look, it's not the first time. Only 2 players have been picked from one country. Scotland's only had 2 players in the past, and back in which was that one, back in 2017, for example. But I'm pretty sure also that actually once I only had 1 player, but that was probably back in the amateur era. With that one, because I think one of their wingers, Gagan, was probably the only person who went. Leinster with 12 players lead the way on that one, and that's without Pendergast getting picked, as both Finn Russell, Finn Smith, and Marcus Smith. So as you can see, if you want to be a 10 for the Lions, you have to be the Finn or Smith in your name, or both. For that one. With actually the scrum halves. I think Sam Pendergast, whilst he's looked very good when he's behind a strong pack, which he normally is with both Leinster and Ireland. There have been a couple of games where he hasn't managed the game so well, and I think that's probably why he's missed out. And look, he's a very young player. He will grow into that role. And then Amaro Toji has been the England captain, has been picked as captain of the Lions, with Conan, the Irish captain, being a bit unlucky or not being picked, I think, from the side from memory, for that one. So so an English captain in a squad that is mainly filled with Irish players. I think pretty much as we expected, right? With 15 from Ireland, 13 from England, 8 from Scotland, and 2 from Wales. Not many surprises from that point of view.
No, not really. I think it's a pretty good squad. I'm a little bit surprised at some of the confidence that's coming out of Australia at the moment. Not just Australia, but obviously the likes of Stephen Donald, who I don't know whether it was just a clickbait comment or what the deal was.
I'm not sure I rate Stephen. I'm not sure I rate Stephen Donald's comments about Northern Hemisphere rugby, to be honest.
No, I was yeah, really surprised. Obviously, he had a bit of a crack at the URC and the Rugby Championship, and then basically came out and said uh, that he thinks that the Wallabies will win the series. That's a good point that Nocturnal Rights actually makes. Darcy Graham is a little bit of it is a little bit of a little bit of a surprise. And would you say I'm looking around for Duan? Oh, yeah, Duan van der Merwe. He's actually there, but I suppose it was just really a case of not maybe Elliot Daly a little bit lucky to make the side. You think, Paul?
I think, as I say, I think there are a couple, one or two here or there that you can kind of that you can question, as you say. Yeah, Darcy, Matt Hansen, and also Elliot Daly, the two that kind of jumped out at me as being kind of raised a little bit of an eyebrow on those ones. But Elliot Daly's still playing in the England team. Well, why I don't know, but he is still there. Matt Hansen, it's probably there mainly because it's got to be because there's players that that Farrell feels he can trust is my guess with that one. But yeah, I think Darcy Graham a little bit unlucky, and Elliot Daly and Darcy Graham a little bit unlucky there with that one. For the first time ever, the clubs are actually going to be compensated by the Lions for using for having the use of their players. Apparently, Leinster will be getting £1 million because they've got so many players in the squad. That will help with their balance sheet. Let's be honest with that one. And Blair Kinghorn is the only player who does not play in the British and Irish Isles who's playing in France that has been picked as well. So so well done for him. Now, obviously, that means because of because of him being involved with Toulouse, who are likely to go deep in the top 14 finals, he will be probably late arriving at the end of the day on the tour, but everyone else obviously will be available pretty early on. Pollock, look, I mean, a player that you called out after his Northampton Saints performance against Leinster the other week. Perhaps he's one of the ones that's a bit. I wouldn't say necessarily a major surprise, but doesn't have the experience of some other players who's got on there. So that's I guess that's perhaps be one of the few there that maybe a bit not a surprise because of the form, but a surprise because he probably at the beginning of the season he would not have been on many people's lists to be in that squad. And with 38 players, perhaps a couple more than because I've listened to a couple of podcasts where they've selected their squads and they've kept themselves to 36. So I think it looks like he's also allowed himself a couple of extra players as well on this one. Needs to be careful it's not too close to the squad and that all players feel like they have actually got a choice from that one. So Chris O'Bey says actually he's allowed to add two more. He's out of 40 players. To me, that's too many to take on tour. At the end of for really look. Yes, there will be injuries and other players coming in. That's totally expected. So you will end up with sort of like maybe 45 players by the end of it used. But I don't think you want 40 players there at the same time. I mean, with 38, that's two match day squads plus two extra players. Yes, Chris O'Bey says, look, Clive Woodward took 44. He did, and that was an absolute disaster of a tour from a Lions point of view. So yeah, that was an example of how not to do it. But yeah, so that's what's been going on around the traps. So let's jump in to the games from the weekend. We kicked off on Friday night with the first evening game over in Fiji as the Drua hosted the Blues. And look, this was one-way traffic for most of the Blues getting across the line early doors with Marcel Retina. After only 6 minutes, the Funakai, and I think also they'd actually already had they already dropped the ball over the line from a line out north. I mean, they could have scored even earlier than that one. And by half time, it was 22-0, 0-22, with the Blues fully in control of this one. I'm not really sure there is much to Blues the Druid kryptonite. Look, I think Druid is having a bad season. Full stop, really. And look, it ballooned out to 0.34 before a late consolation try by the Druid in there. But having Bowden Barrett back, I think is a massive difference for this team, and they really do need him. I understand that rugby is supposed to be a team game, but as you remember, though, they once said in a pre-game talk, remember, boys, it's a team game. The 14 of you pass the ball to Lomo. It's that. So it feels a bit like that with Blues when you got Barrett there. It's like give it to Barrett and let him decide what happens, because look, his little crazy little Grubbuth round that he went to collect and then passed off to Forbes try was amazing. It was an amazing piece of skill for that one. So yes, it was a good performance by the Blues. Okay, when the Drua have kept to one offload and the Blues score 6, the Drua are just not playing their style of rugby at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle for them. They're a disappointment for me that Mason Tupaia didn't score a try for the Blues, because that meant all the props for the Blues would have touched down on the night. That would have been something to brag about. When we have ever seen that happen in a game? Listen, I just thought it was one of those games where tactically the Blues played it absolutely perfectly. I know there was a bit of stuff going around the social network about what a boring game it was, and maybe the Blues were lucky. I think I mentioned this to you last week, that they were probably a little bit fortunate to get the Drua in the evening on a Friday night and a night game. But you also shouldn't forget. Somebody before mentioned that maybe the Blues are the kryptonite for the Drua, because I can think back to 2023. They played at Lautoka, and the Blues comfortably beat the Drua on that occasion, playing a similar type of game, just absolutely grinding them down, controlling the ball, not leaving a lot of ball lying around. Of course, if you play an open game, not only are you in danger of tiring yourself out, Paul, but you're also in danger of making mistakes. And I think if you make mistakes from turnover, I think that's where you bring the Drua into the game. So I think the Blues are to be given a lot of credit, because that was a must-win game. It was certainly a game that could have been a banana skin, but at the end of the day, it was very, very comfortable. And listen, I know people out there saying, it was a boring performance, and I actually think that it might be a sort of performance that they find their mojo again up front. And of course, this weekend, and we'll get onto that, they're probably going to come up against a side that can play similar to the Drua, but will have a little bit more control, I would imagine. As for the Drua, Paul, we've heard about murmurings about some signings, some players heading offshore, and quite frankly, they've been a real disappointment this year.
Yeah, I mean, for the Drua, they just can't wait for the season to finish, having it and restart, and then go again next year. It's all about. I mean, look, they made 169 tackles, 124 by the Blues. So this wasn't like that sort of scoreline. You might think, the Blues just had the ball the whole time, and the Drua never had it. No, the Drua had it. They had possession, but this Blues team is built on defence, or historically has, or the last couple of years has been, and they just executed better when they had their opportunities, and defended better. So it's much just I say there wasn't a domination purely on possession, but they managed where they played on the pitch, and when they had opportunities, they took them. So apart from that, obviously that drop over the line. Great, very, very good performance by the Blues. And for those of us like myself who had kind of counted them out for the season, perhaps we shouldn't have done. With 6 teams out of 11 making it through the finals, anything's possible, except for the Drua, I'm afraid. Moving on then. We had a much more interesting game with the Waratahs taking on the Reds. Now this one, when it kicked off, the opening part of it, both sides just decided to turn the ball over to each other, so initially it was bang 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 backwards for neither side seemed to be able to hold on to that ball. But once they managed to do so, the Tars started off with a bit of a bang, getting themselves 2 tries and a 14-0 lead. McDermott doing it himself. McDermott then doing himself in the back of a scrum, got the Blues back into it, and yellow cards were going to play a part in this one, and both went into the bin on 31 minutes. The Reds took advantage of that by scoring a try and evening things up at 14-all at half time. Unfortunately, after the yellow card, also we saw one of the sort of big injuries of this weekend, with Joseph Suolii going off the pitch. So a shame there for the Waratahs. I've not heard as to how long he's going to be out for, whether he'll be back again, whether it's just a small niggle or something. But yes, say one of the big injuries for one of the big name players getting injured this weekend. After half time, the Reds got their own yellow card, but the Waratahs took advantage with Topu, the Tongan Thor bashing over for a try. He though then went from the winner to sinner, as Head Clash saw him yellow carded for the 3rd yellow card of the game, and that the Reds took advantage of that period while he was off, scoring 2 tries to give themselves a 21-28 victory in this one, and with some nice offloads and some nice play for that last try of theirs. The other one was a maul over a line-out maul try with that one. So look, one of the things that's been criticised about the Reds is they can't win on the road. So yeah, really important victory for them over the Waratahs with this one. A coming from behind win as well, as they trailed twice in this game but managed to pull out the win.
Yeah, and great bit of skill from Filippo Delgunu with the cross kick to pick up Lockie Anderson, who scored in the corner. I see Rugby Ramble, does Tupou even get selected this year? Yeah, I actually think he does, because man, he's a dominant figure and he can scrum. Obviously, his fitness is an issue, but boy, he's just the guy. He's just the guy. He can carry very well. We know he can scrum. He ticks a lot of boxes. Just that fitness issue is the issue for Taniela Tupou.
And he also brings experience as well now. I mean, he's not an inexperienced player anymore.
100%. That'll be. I'm pretty sure that the British and Irish Lions will back themselves in that particular area. Just on the Waratahs, you go 14-0 up. That's a heck of a start, but you don't take advantage of it. And I think their coaching staff will be really disappointed. Disappointed to concede 2 late tries, one at the end of the first half, and obviously the biggie right at the end of the match. Those are just real key moments, and sometimes it's about playing the game in the right place. And there are times they just gave away really, really silly penalties to give the Reds a little bit of a leg up and stay in the game. I thought at 21-all it was reasonably balanced, and if the crazy thing about it, they had almost managed their way with Tupou off the field, and it was just really in that last minute, once again from a turnover, not actually being able to take care of the high kick, and then the opportunity basically opened itself up. And I must admit, the Reds are very blessed with their 2 halfbacks, and Tate McDermott and also Kalani Thomas. I thought he was great value when he came on. Best game this year, also I've got to say, from Fraser McFreight as well. I think that's probably the most dominant game I've seen him play this year. It's fair to say he's probably lived in the shadow of Tizano a little bit during this 2025 season. So, frustrating for the Waratahs, but good for the Reds. So they've definitely given themselves an opportunity with a couple of rounds to push their claims further up the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Suolii one, just a quick look up. And look, he did go off on the cart with a neck brace on, so it looked very bad. Apparently, look, he's been cleared of any other injuries apart from concussion. Now, look, so yes, I know there's some things in the chat there about maybe missing the lines. Who will have to wait and see. Look, it's 2 months, so he could come back from concussion. But then again, I've heard of road cyclists who have got head concussions and been out for over 6 months. So it really, concussion ones can be very strange. It'll really just depend on kind of how he feels and how he's impacted by it. So it could be anything from back in 2 weeks to being out for 6 months, or even ending a career. Concussions, as I say, can be very wildly different in their outcomes. Now we'll have to just wait and see on that one. Obviously, we hope it's not going to be that bad, but it did look a lot worse, to say, with the neck brace and all that kind of stuff going off. But actually, yeah, concussion apparently is the extent of it. But I don't want to minimize how bad concussions can be. A cracking win for an important win for the Reds. On the Waratahs side of things, though, losing at home when you've had that, as you say, you've had that 14-0 lead, it really puts a dent in their finals chances for this season. Then we had the top of the table clash, and boy oh boy, if you're saying that the Waratahs coach are going to be sad from letting a 14-0 lead slip, well, let's talk about Crusaders. 19-3 lead that they unfortunately, unfortunately for them, let slip. They start off very well. Tom Christie diving over in the corner. The number 7 doing his pretending to be a winger out there in the corner. Scott Barrett then bashed through and reached to score before David McKenzie at the restart managed to knock over a penalty to at least get the Chiefs off the board. Shalfoon, so another forward again, bashed over for the Crusaders, and with only 1 minute to play in the half, they're leading 19-3 and feeling very happy about the situation that they're in. But at the end of that half, they managed to get a try for Nara, which, let's be honest, was a pretty lucky try because the ball went wide. Stevenson tried to get the ball out of the tackle. It got knocked down. It bounced around. Nara was the most awake and picked it up and put it down. But that so easily could have gone through a Crusaders' hand. It wasn't really the slickest of tries that the Chiefs have scored this year. So a good 19-10 lead at half time. And look, the title of the show: have the Chiefs lost their mojo? Because you know what happened to them against the Waratahs? Well, a second half demolition by the Waratahs saw them lose that game, and that's what the Chiefs have been famous for this season. Has been their second half performances. So I did wonder if they've been found out. The answer is no. With Damien McKenzie back in the seat, a bit like I was talking about earlier with Barrett, Bowden Barrett, that is, being important for the Blues. DMAC is important for the Chiefs. Look, he scored his own try. The Chiefs were bashing away at the line. He called the ball on the blind side and went over. Lee Carter then got a turnover ball and ran it in from a long way out. Look, the Sevens player showing you that he's got that try-scoring instinct of, I'm going to hold on to it and go. There. Another penalty by DMAC. Look, the what was this? So look, you might go, why are they actually kicking penalties? That's not really the New Zealand style, but that made change the lead from being 3 points to 6 points, which made it basically a try rather than a penalty to even things up. And then Satiti went over late on to confirm the score and the win at 19-35. So so that was why it was an important penalty. Actually, the penalty took from a single score to a 2-score lead there and went over. I don't understand why Stephen Harris has gone side on. But technology. I think he's clearly.
I've got into Batman mode.
But yeah, we'll be fine with him hanging off the side of the cliff, as his points there. But yeah, another performance by the Chiefs, where they dominate the second half, and so clearly they have not lost their mojo, and they've shown that but I was wondering if they had it coming into the weekend, but so clearly they haven't, and they've managed to put on in another one of those second half demonstrations. So, and your thoughts from the game, Stephen?
Well, from very much my sideways perspective, I was going to say, once again, key moment just before halftime. Shelfern scores, converted by Ray Hunter from the kickoff. There's an obstruction, and the opportunities opened up for the Chiefs, where I think it had gone in with that 19-3 lead, and then straight after halftime, bang bang, two tries in the space of 5 minutes. And I just think the Crusaders were mentally gone after that, and they just couldn't get themselves back up again. I think the Chiefs gained their mojo, and more importantly, we've always said the Chiefs are so good off the bench when you can bring the likes of Finau, Rowe, Jacob, and I thought Rampling when he came on was pretty good, but also that front row of O'Neill, Ross, and Takiaho, who was just outstanding off the bench. I think he got a couple of real crucial turnovers in that last 20 minutes as well. So his contribution was huge.
Yeah, and discipline a big one on here. 12 penalties by the Crusaders to only 6 by the Chiefs. So discipline a big one here with this one. And as we mentioned in the chat by Nocturnal Rights, is that the scrum held up for the Chiefs, and so that supply of ball for the Crusaders just wasn't there in this one, where they couldn't use that as a weapon against the Chiefs with that one. So yes, so Stephen Harris is back on to come back on his right way up. But yeah, so discipline a big one there for that one. Actually, first of all, I forgot to mention that the Waratahs Reds. Yeah, was that? So yeah, the Tupu yellow card was the big turning point for that one for me. Final game of the round then saw the Force versus the Brumbies. Now remember, the Force had got that win in Canberra earlier in the season, and there was another blow for the Brumbies. Oh, sorry, in that the Crusaders Chiefs game, another big name getting injured was Will Jordan going off the pitch. So yes, those of you that had Will Jordan down as one of your players for your fantasy, a bit like Suolihi, you're in trouble. But thankfully, it looks like he has got a knee strain, so nothing broken there with that one. And they expect that he should be back before the end of the season. And considering we've only got 3 rounds left, then the finals, there's not much season left for him to come back from. So it wasn't too bad too bad a one. Obviously injury for Will Jordan by the sounds of things, but we'll just have to wait and see how he comes back from that one. So Force Brumbies, early on, Nola Lucio unfortunately got wrapped up in a ruck and had to go off the pitch. So that looked like a bad one for him, and I think that's him done for the season. And we'll have to see whether he comes back for the I've gone blank for the Lions, because yes, that was definitely a scary neck, or definitely an injury scare, or neck injury scare for that one. He did not. He looked unfortunately looked in a very poor position, as he was off on a stretcher as well. So we'll have to wait and see again what the news is that comes out of that one. As to where we'll see Lolosio coming back, because he had been playing well this season. So a big loss for the Brumbies early on there. The Force got themselves an early try to take a 5-0 lead with a line-out maul. And then Ikitau doing what he does, which is hanging around at the back of rucks, spotted that there was no guard, picked it up and went straight over for a try. So yeah, Len Ikitau not scoring many out there in the centres, but definitely getting in amongst the forwards and scoring them this season. And then Toole picked one up just on half time as well. I love the pass over the top by Wright to get the ball to Toole in space, and over he goes for a try there. So a 7-14 lead there at half time. Multiple infringements led to a yellow card for the Force, and Hooper went over for a try soon after that. But that was the only score the Brumbies managed. Whilst the Force were down a man. Greeley then down the wing with a guy hanging off him somehow kept himself in the pitch and decided that yes, I am going to score, and put it down. And that got the Force back into it at 14-21. But Sapsworth then on his 50th game scored a try out wide. Toole had another one disallowed before Balron went over as part of line-out maul to make it a 14-33. So perhaps, yes, a game that I think the Brumbies were in control of, but perhaps not to 14-33 scale. I think the Force were a bit closer than that for this one with that try after the hooter there for the Brumbies. Perhaps make it look a bit more comfortable than it really was.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'll tell you what, it was a blow. I think you were going to mention it. There was a blow before kickoff as well, losing Carl Tazzano. I think there was probably a real blow for a lot of us who had him in our fantasy rugby team as well, because I hadn't replaced him, and so completely missed out on the points altogether. Just with they're a plucky side this Western Force, but I think Tazzano just gives them something a little bit extra at breakdown. He's just a real nuisance value at breakdown area. And I think also what's being shown is probably just their depth as well. They've had to roll this pretty much the same 15 out for games that they've really needed to win over the last few weeks. And I just think it might be just starting to tell a wee bit, Paul. But on saying that, big ups to that locking combination of Williams and Swain. I'll tell you what, they've pretty much got their line out work down pat, haven't they?
Yes.
Especially, I was going to say, do they lead the stats in terms of lineouts?
So this one, the Force won 12 lineouts, the Brumbies won 13, but the Force lost one lineout. The Brumbies lost 5. At one point, it seemed like every single lineout the Force were winning. It didn't matter who was throwing it in. Exactly. That's probably what kept them in the game early on. Unfortunately for the Force, though, their discipline let them down. Giving 12 penalties to 5 by the Brumbies.
If you were picking a Wallaby side, whilst Nick Frost is a big tall man, he's been very impressive for the Brumbies. Darcy Swain has really played some very good rugby in 2025 of Super Rugby Pacific. At the end of the day, the Brumbies showing that winning on the road is not an issue for them, and that win just keeps them chomping away at the heels of the Chiefs, and obviously puts them ahead of the Crusaders. And I think, do they play one of those teams at home, Paul?
So the Brumbies will be hosting the Crusaders at home. So talking now, you've mentioned that. Let's talk about the table then. Chiefs top of the table with 41 points, and the Brumbies second in the table on 39 points. The Crusaders then at 37 points, so another 2 points back. But the Crusaders have played one less game, so they will play one more game than the other two above them, which if they got a try bonus point, would put them top of the table. So it's still in the Crusaders' hands. But as you say, the Crusaders do have to go to the. They have to host the Highlanders. They have to go to the Waratahs. We saw what the Waratahs did to the Chiefs the other weekend. They have to host the Highlanders and then go to the Brumbies in their final game of the season. So, whilst it is in their hands, that last game of the last weekend of the Brumbies hosting the Crusaders is looking like an absolute cracker. There's a bit of a gap then back to the Reds, who are 5 points back on 32 points, who have got a nice 5-point lead over the Blues, who are on 27, and the Reds have played one less game than the Blues as well. So again, they could pull away.
Yep.
The Blues are only 1 point ahead of the Hurricanes. With the Hurricanes, the Hurricanes have played one less game, so they can jump over them, as can the Moana Pacifica, who are on 24 points. So at the moment, whilst the Blues do sit in the top 6, it's not in their hands, depending on other results. The Tars, though, on 22 points, are now 4 points off the top 6. The Force also on 22 points, but the Force have played an extra game, so it's a long way back for the Force. And I think we can discount the Highlanders now on 18, who are 8 points off the playoffs, and the Fijian Drua on 15 points.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, Paul, and probably going into good segue into this weekend. You'll probably find after this weekend there'll probably be some sides that will either be there or not, and you're probably talking about the likes of the Force, probably Moana versus the Blues, teams like that. Just on the Brumbies, probably the only concern, as previously stated before, is that injury to Noah Lolesio. All of a sudden, Declan Meredith becomes the playmaker for this Brumbies team. So it's certainly going to be a big ask. But I'll tell you what, if they can finish second, they could go quite deep. They could go quite deep into the finals.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, home advantage will be massive for them if they can get that. But yes, I'll say that's that. So at the moment, in that top 6, I'll say the Blues are there, but it's not in their hands. So in some ways, top 6 is Chiefs, Brumbies, Crusaders, Reds, Hurricanes, and Moana Pacifica. Okay, but it depends on results. As you've mentioned, though, there are some big ones this weekend. Hurricanes versus the Highlanders, not so much there, but the Waratahs versus the Crusaders. So the Waratahs are definitely playing for their lives there. Rugby Rumble says, how far away is Debrasini? Yeah, Debrasini could come back and make his way into the Wallabies if he performed well for the Brumbies at this point. I don't know where he's at that. I've got no idea, to be honest with you, on that one. The Drua then versus the Force. Look, I think they're both really out of it. But Moana Pacifica versus the Blues, that is a massive game for that one. And then also the Brumbies versus the Reds. Again, a big game there, because if the Reds lose that, then they start slipping down and might have to start looking behind them. Whereas if they win that, then they could be looking at top 3 and potentially a home first round, depending on how their other results go. So, yes, a couple of, especially on the sort of games on the Sunday. Oh, Saturday. The games on Saturday. Those 2 last games really are going to play a big part in what happens in the finals coming up with that one. Simon Hughes says he saw an idea about having a Super Rugby team in America. Look, maybe Hawaii, but yeah, still seems like a bad idea. We've seen what happens when you expand Super Rugby without any plan. It goes to pot. So yes, how about actually having a long-term plan first and then decide how you're going to expand? Would be kind of a nice idea, in my opinion.
What about Argentina?
Well, I mean, hey, if you're going to do the US, if you're going to do mainland USA, then Argentina's in the same time zone. So who cares? So yeah, there's not much difference from that point of view. So prediction time then. Hurricanes versus the Highlanders. The TAB have the Hurricanes as heavy favourites at $1.18, actually the strongest favourites of the weekend, and the Highlanders on $4.50.
Hurricanes.
Yeah, I think Hurricanes all day there. Yes, sure, they've had COVID, which hasn't helped them, but will be interesting to see if they continue with Love at 10, or if Brett Cameron comes back in after playing a couple of club games. He could come back in at 10 and Love could go back to 15. It'll be interesting to see if they change a winning formula or how they go about that one. For the Highlanders, it was mentioned earlier that Sam Gilbert is heading overseas after this one. He'll be a big loss for them. Look, Is he an All Black? No, he's not, but he is a regular starter who can play several positions in that back line, and has been a constant presence for them for the past couple of years. So yeah, real shame to be losing someone like Sam Gilbert for the Highlanders. He's the kind of player that that you kind of want to build your club around, or becomes kind of like a long-term club player. But unfortunately, a shame that he's leaving. Next up, then, the Waratahs versus the Crusaders. The Waratahs at $3, the Crusaders at $1.35. So, Stephen, the Waratahs turned over the Chiefs at home the other week. What do you think of the chances against the Crusaders?
Listen, Suali's going to be a heck of a loss for the Waratahs. I mean, it's really last chance saloon to them. They've just got the 2 games going. I don't even know if 27 points will be enough to actually get them through. The Crusaders will probably be thinking about last year, because they were the one.
3 games. 3 games. Waratahs, not the Crusaders at home, away to the Force and away to the Blues. So a tough ask.
Yeah, the Waratahs will be thinking, the Crusaders, begging your pardon, will be thinking a little bit about last year, because round 2, I think that was the magic round played in Melbourne last year. The Waratahs won 37-24, and I think we can think back to last year, might have been around about round 7, maybe around 7 or 8. I think it was round 8. The Waratahs beat the Crusaders 43-40 in the very last minute. In fact, it was actually extra time. Will Harrison drop kick that goal.
You mean the Waratahs last year, who won only 2 games? Who beat the Crusaders both home and away?
Yep, both home and away. So I think that might be sticking in the craw a little bit with the Crusaders. So I'll pick the Crusaders to win this weekend.
Yeah, look, I think they will do. But look, again, with Kemmerer out, I mean, Rivers Reihana had a decent game at the weekend, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Look, they've lost a key man at 10. Now that Kemmerer was definitely not as influential as Dave McKenzie or Bowden Barrett are for the Chiefs and the Blues, but was exciting glue, part of the glue for that team. So yeah, Rivers Reihana coming back has only just come back from injury, hasn't got much game time under his belt. So it'll be interesting to see how obviously he's leading that team into that game. But yeah, the Crusaders have been playing very well. It took a good Chiefs side to take them down. So I think they'll go into that one. They should win that one. Next up, then, the Drua versus the Force. The Drua $1.45 favourites. The Force at $2.60. Look, this is a tough one, isn't it? Look, the Drua are having a terrible season this year. The Force have shown they can travel. When they went and beat the Brumbies away from home. If Tizano is available, then look, I think they're a really good shout here. To be honest, I think it's closer than $1.45 to $2.60. If he's not there, then perhaps not. I think he's a big influence on this team. Look, this if he's not there, then I think this should be a rare highlight for the Drua in what's been a real poor season for them.
Yeah, it hasn't been great, Paul. The one thing I will say, that this game is being played in Lautoko at about 3:30 in the afternoon, and the high for Saturday is 29 degrees. Very little wind, 6 kilometers of wind, with a humidity of around about 80%. So for me, I might just go for the home side. That this could be the end of the Forces season. They would have to create a bit of history and win at Lautoko. I can't see it personally.
Okay, you're strongly over with the draw. I'm less so. Rugby Reynolds says, look, about Sam Gilbert, he's handy, but can't begrudge him leaving when he's not really in the frame for high honours. Now, this is not about begrudging him leaving. It's about saying he'll be a big loss for the Highlanders, and the kind of player that Highlanders need to hold on to if they're going to kind of grow their franchise. I don't begrudge him going for the more money. Absolutely, go play in Connacht. The weather on the West Coast, he'll be thinking, geez, why can't we have a covered stadium there? But on the West Coast of Scotland, on the West Coast of Ireland, so he'll be missing the covered stadium, that's for sure. Then the Blues travel a very short distance across the bridge to play Moana Pacifica. This one, Moana Pacifica, $4. The Blues $1.22. Now, clearly, the Blues are on a good run of form at the moment, having won 3 out of their last 5 games. Moana have also won 3 out of their last 5 games as well. This one should be a cracking game here. I do not see this one as being $4 to $1.22. But then again, I said the exact same thing when Moana played the Blues last time, where the Blues won 36-17. So perhaps, what do I know from that point of view? Are the Blues such strong favourites, do you think, or am I right that the Moana are closer than that?
Yeah, they're probably expecting a couple of bodies. I think the likes of Mark Talia might be another week away, if I stand corrected. I think he was out for 3 weeks, but I believe that Caleb Clark is actually back training. So there are a couple of others as well. I believe James Lay also played on the weekend for the University Club in Auckland. So slowly there are some bodies that are going to be available for this particular Blues side. Listen, it's going to be a cracker. I've heard there's so much interest in the game this week. It could be the biggest crowd we've seen at North Harbour Stadium for a while. You know, good time Saturday evening match. Listen, I just think what we'll see from the Blues is something similar from what we saw in the first game. I think they'll just basically grind Moana down. If they haven't got that ability, Moana need to get off to a good start. They can't be chasing this game, Paul, because I don't think the Blues are that sort of side that'll let you back in. So I'm going to go with the visitors.
So quickly on that, the Blues injury list at the beginning of round 12. So this is 2 weeks ago, not last week. I can't find the round 13 injury list, but they had Caleb Clark, Rion Paul, Ofatuangafasi, Sam Darry. So Mark Talia was not listed as injured 2 weeks ago. So he is. So from that point of view, yes, he is available to come back. There was a talk about Jack Debrasini. Jack Debrasini was groin 3 to 4 weeks 2 weeks ago. So yeah, not back just yet, but possibly back for the finals there on Debrasini. Moana Pacifica, oh my word, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, had 11 players out 2 weeks ago. So clearly they're being a little bit tested with the depth of their squad coming in. So with that testing of depth, yeah, perhaps Blues is are that strong.
I think the week off came at the right time for Moana, Paul. I believe to pull a few bodies back. I know Alan Craig will be back after his wife had a baby about a week or so. About two weeks ago. That was the reason why he didn't play against the Highlanders. But I think it's going to be a physical game. I think it's just going to be a great celebration of rugby. But I think the Blues will win this game, and theoretically, it could be the game that ends Moana season. I know they've still got to travel away to the Chiefs in the next round, I believe. Round 15.
So Moana have got Blues at home, Chiefs away, Hurricanes away. Ouch. Okay, yeah, I think the chance of Moana making the finals, unfortunately, with that run-in is pretty slim. Let's be honest, especially with that kind of injury list as well. By the way, I've just found the round 13 one, and Jack Debrasini is 3 weeks away, so in time for the finals, but probably not in time for the regular season games by the looks of things. I'll go with the Blues there. Finally, then Brumbies versus the Reds. Brumbies at home, $1.45. The Reds $2.60. Two sides that have been going really well this season, as you can see, sat second and fourth in the table. The Brumbies in good form with 4 wins out of their last 5 games. The Reds, though, 2 wins out of their last 5, which shows that they've stumbled a bit recently, even with that away win to the Waratahs last weekend. Where remember they had to come back from behind twice. I don't think the Brumbies would let them back in that situation, and so I'll go with another home win with this one.
Yeah, this is these watching these Australians top sides going head to head been a lot of fun. I've got to say, and I think this game will be absolutely no different. But yeah, I've got to, despite Noah Lalacio not being there, I think Declan Meredith is more than adequate replacement. I think he might have actually toured with the Australian 15 end of season tour last year. So he's a player that's coming on nicely. So yep, the Brumbies to round out the weekend.
So there you go, folks. That's our views as to how the next weekend's round will be. We will be back next Monday at 8 p.m. To talk about all of those games. We'll see what kind of state I'm in, because the Sunday is my birthday. So let's just see how sober Paul is come Monday evening for the DrivingMaul show, as I head into the second half of my life, being 51 this coming Sunday. So yes, last year I said, look, I'm halfway, because let's head for 3 figures is my goal. So there you go, folks. Now, as I said last week, remember, do something today that your future self will thank you for, folks. That's the answer to discipline, apparently, according to a podcast I listened to. So, Stephen, thank you very much for joining me.
No, not a problem at all. And make sure you keep being a better version of yourself.
Not a better version of yourself, but at least help your future self. Have a I say, stay safe, folks, and see you all next week.